there we were, doing all this in Singapore, and we were stationed at Nee Soon. It was an army camp, a transit camp, and yet we were all ostensibly entertainers, though we were all in the forces. Peter was in the RAF, Stanley Baxter was army, I was army. We were all army, but at the same time we were supposed to entertain, and the OC lined us up and said, now, because you're entertainers, I understand they have to want to act, that's fine, but I want you to go about behaving like soldiers. I will not have a lot of this effeminacy and mincing about. And you could hear in the back row, get the madam. Quiet! Don't try that on with me. I was with Ivan Novello. You can't teach me anything. I know about the prayers. Heaven knows what he did with Ivan Novello. And there was all this anger about any kind of effeminacy, and our opening number in the review was, we all had to come on, you see, singing, we're boys of the service, we're at your service, entertaining you. One of those sort of openings, you see. And he watched this, and they're dreadful. Boys of the service, dreadful, it's too effeminate. And all those sibilants, boys of the service, terrible. No, let's make it men. Men of the service. I'll go back off and come on again and sing men. So we all came back. We're men of the service. He said, yes, that's more like it. Yes, he said, showing you're all fellow men. And then he called us all for a parade and said he was bringing in a tough man from the Durham Light Infantry, so they could lick some discipline into you. Man from the Durham Light Infantry, Sergeant Major, is going to lick some discipline into you. So we were all frightened to death, and this man came and joined the company. He was the Sergeant Major. And as time went on, we found out there were one or two little fiddles being done with the Sergeant Major and the Chinese tailors in Singapore, and he was eventually caught by, of all things, it's so weird. He was caught by the conjurer in the show. I never thought much of his conjuring, actually. And then I found out afterwards that he was SIB, he was Special Investigation Branch, planted to find out what was going on about these astronomical bills. And the bills were very high because Sergeant Major was doing a deal with the Chinese tailor saying, charge 500, we'll have split the rest between us. And so he was caught and on a charge for embezzlement. And the next thing was, he took poison, and the Sergeant Major was dead, and the OC lined us up and said, well, look here, Sergeant Major's killed himself. The man's more trouble dead than he was alive. We're going to bury him. And all over 6 foot, stand forward for pallbearing. And Stanley Baxter went down. Went right down, you know. Nobody wanted to be a pallbearer. And the old man came along. He said, you all do. It's our newer Church of Scotland. And the old man said, oh, I'm sorry, I beg your pardon. Yes, of course, I understand. And then went on down the line. Then he turned me and said, just a minute. You talk about Church of Scotland, you bury people, come on. So he got him and the pianist and one of the dancers, and they all had to parade and go with this coffin to the cemetery, the British military cemetery, and the monsoon was falling down. It was actually pouring down, and they had this flag on the coffin. And the vicar said, get it off, get the flag off. Ignominious death. Of course, ignominious death, you give no battle honours. So it had to be got. And I said, oh, yes, I'm sorry, and all get this. And then this man was standing there with all this cassock flapping and this terrible monsoon, saying, man is born a woman in his life is grieving full of misery, he comes out by the corn and is cut down like the corn, and there is no... And the OC, oh, it's very fine. Very fine, very beautiful. And in the meantime, in the middle of this, you know, incarceration, the car, an enormous Packard arrived with a Chinese chauffeur, opened it, and out got a lady. He held an umbrella over, and she was crying visibly. And the old man was staggered. Oh, who are you, you see? Suddenly this woman appeared, and she said, I was his wife. We didn't know he'd married this woman secretly in Singapore. And the old man said, oh, my dear, it's very upsetting for you. Oh, yes, well, come, I'll take you back after the funeral. I'll take you back to my quarters, and we'll have a little drink here. We'll say, look after you, a little brandy, pull you together. Yes, I need something. Just crying. And I wasn't present at the rest of it, but Baxter told me that she was ensconced in the HQ. He said, she was sitting there in a kimono the next day having the coffee, you know. And, you know, they said it was a mourning as brief as Clytemnestra's. Well, it was quite Faggot. And then we did these tours, you know. We toured all over the place with these shows, and we're taking with our shows quite a number of civilians. There was a lady who was saying it's a grand night for singing, and with the opening of the show I was with, and we were all told, you know, be very careful when you're touring in Malaya and Burma, not to have don't have anything to do with these itinerant peddlers. And they used to come by on the railway trains offering you watermelon, and this silly girl ate the melon, you see. And it was grown in typhus-infested water, so the consequence was she had the most dreadful dysentery. And the grand night for singing number was distorted. She kept rushing on, you know, it's grand night for singing. And they fixed up a commode in the wings, but we were all left there because we were all the chorus around going la 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 la. We were all la-laing, and we were left while she shot off to this commode and going la la and filling in like mad. And then she came back, but did it in another key. So the whole thing was absolute disaster. And there was a civilian dancer called Barry Chatt, who had the most extraordinary effect on the military. When he arrived in Burma, he was at the HQ, he was standing outside, and outside the HQ were several generals, brigadiers, with rolled-up maps, you know, and field glasses, all standing there outside HQ. And this dancer, Barry, did a pirouette about 6 times, fast, and very fast indeed, and then tapped this brigadier on the shoulder and said, "Tell your mother we're here, dear, put the kettle on." That was the sort of thing one had to cope with. And when we got to Hong Kong, which was where I left, you see, because that was our last date, and I was being demobbed from Hong Kong, and we, whilst in Hong Kong, were asked to take part in an adaptation on radio of The Death of Nelson. And it was rather moving, very beautiful. And Stanley Baxter was playing Hardy, I was playing the French secretary. Peter Nichols couldn't be in it because he had to go to hospital. He was always going to hospital, Peter Nichols. I think he was getting out of it, really. And then we did this show and this dramatisation of The Death of Nelson Trafalgar, and the Admiral of the fleet, Admiral Sir Bruce Fraser, was the narrator. And he came out after the broadcast and said, it was very moving, very fine. And I'd like you all to come back on the flagship for drinks. And we said, oh, yes, very nice, thank you very much. And we rushed, we were all in white shirts and trousers, the khaki drill, and we went in his motor, flying the pennant of the Admiral to the dock gates, where the sentries all bashed the rifles and presented arms, and they were taken on a launch out and then up the ladder of the Belfast cruiser, which was his flagship. And there were stewards there, you know, and ensigns saying, oh, ping gin, right ping gin, ping gin, ping gin, ping gin fuel, ping gin. So thank you very much, ping gin, ping gin. We were all standing there in the wardroom, loving it. And they said, are you enjoying life on the colony? And we said, we don't live here. We're in the army. Said, what? What is your rank? And I said, sergeant, and Baxter said, sergeant, and sergeant, because we were in an officer's wardroom. Well, the drinks were out of our hands in about 10 seconds flat. And we were over the side and bundled off with no ceremony at all, no piping, nothing like that. And when we got to the dock gates, nobody presented arms. Baxter said he heard a raspberry. And that really, I mean, I know it sounds weird, but it all actually happened. I mean, anyone here doubted? Does anyone here, you're looking doubtful. Do you think it happened? I mean, I don't mind having any questions about Army at this point, because it is an audience with. Any question about Army? Ah, there's Brian. Brian Forbes. Yes, Brian. You have a question?
Well, not a question so much, Ken, but I'm interested because we were all in CSEU, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Did you think at that time that you were going to go on and make a career out of it?
That's interesting. No, because you see, my old man, my father... No, well, my father, you know, my father was a hairdresser. He said, and he'd been in the army, and he said to me, you've got to have a trade, boy. It's no good going, because I said, I wouldn't mind doing a bit. Acting is rubbish. All the women are tarts, the blokes are puffs. You'll never make any money because it's too hazardous. You've got to have a trade, boy. You must have a trade. It was all din. You've got to have a trade. So, of course, I'd been a trained draftsman. That's how I got into the army. I was in the REs as a draftsman, you see. So that really does answer your question. I had no idea at that point I was really doing it in the army because I thought, well, it's a good way out of square bashing and all that awful, you know, drilling and rushing with bayonets and going, ah, and screaming. I could never do it. I could never do it. And, oh, sorry.